Welcome to Mormon Book Reviewers, where an evangelical encounters the restoration. I'm your host, Steven Pynakker, and bringing on an old friend with Jaxon Washburn. Can you believe it's been over 4 years now that we've known each other?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's flown by, but that's true of I don't know, most of my sense of time following the pandemic.
Absolutely. Yeah, so that was 4 years ago this month. We met each other at the Mormon History Association in, where was it? Park City,
Park
Utah.
City.
Yep, and that was the first time I ever engaged scholars, and I was told by some actual evangelical podcasters to look you up, and so I did. And I think we've developed a good friendship throughout the years. We spent time with each other at these conferences, and it's always a pleasure to have my friend Jaxon on, who last time came on to talk about the the LA wildfires that were going on, and the efforts that the church was doing to help people during this time. But Jaxon also has a church calling. And Jaxon, would you share what your church calling is?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I this year I was called to serve as the stake interfaith director for the Los Angeles stake for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I've just absolutely loved it as a calling. I've as many of our past conversations have covered. Um, I have a deep and long-standing love and passion for interfaith relationships, dialogue, collaboration, and interreligious spaces and studies. So, in many respects, this feels like a kind of a dream calling, and it's one that I don't take lightly in terms of how I want to be able to support the efforts of the church here in the Los Angeles area.
Yeah, and so actually, I want to pull up something here, folks, for people to see that recently, just in the last couple of hours, Jaxon has posted here on his Facebook page um, describing his journey with this interfaith effort that he's doing that included actually participating, and this photo is courtesy of the Los Angeles Times, of this interfaith rally. And actually, there's Jaxon right there. I just see you right there. Look at that. There's
Yep.
Jaxon. And and so this is a an interfaith gathering that was done on Tuesday night, which was actually the first night of the curfew that's being enforced in Los Angeles. And actually, the article even states, and you mentioned it in your article, that that Tuesday was unusually peaceful in large part because of the efforts of this interfaith endeavor. So this is a perfect example of actually applying the principles of Christ and into the real world. And I think that that's really important because, of course, blessed be the peacemakers. And that's what
Hmm.
we want to be as peacemakers. And also
Yeah.
to echo
Amen.
the words of President Nelson, we should, a couple of years ago where he talked about, there shouldn't be contention. And so often there's contention in this world and within our space as well. And of course, that leads to the tensions that we're seeing develop in Los Angeles. So I just want you to talk a little bit about why you decided to participate in this interfaith event and how you got permission to do this. You're officially representing the church and your stake, and also just tell us about the engagement you had that evening.
Yeah, of course. Well, yeah, as part of this calling, I'm in communication with various leaders and other members within the stake who themselves either hold stake leadership positions or callings that pertain to outreach and collaboration with humanitarian groups, communications, and in my case, interfaith. And it was through those communications that I first learned about this event and expressed my willingness to go and support the church. Now, support and represent the church in this space. Now, I want to clarify that the original poster or kind of informational flyer that I had seen describing this event in ways, it ended up being quite different than maybe what I first anticipated. Going into it, maybe I thought that it would be more like certain candlelight vigils that I've attended in the past, where possibly as like evening falls, a smaller group of individuals are gathered to kind of share prayers and thoughts and reflections, and then disperse. And while there was the prayer vigil was the kind of central component, it did then move into an actual a group walk over to the federal building for the Department of Homeland Security here in Los Angeles. That was not a required of anyone in the crowd who had first gathered for the prayer vigil. But the sentiment behind it was that we go from standing in prayer with one another to then walking in prayer with one another while still advocating for the same kinds of values, such as solidarity and support for our immigrant brothers and sisters, community members, neighbors here in the area, in support for lawful conduct of nonviolence, of peacemaking, and in support of the humane and dignified treatment of God's immigrant children. To be very, very clear, this was not a partisan event. It was not in support of any particular official, politician, party, or anything of that nature. Rather, my presence there was to represent the church in its own values, its moral values that it has expressed on the topic of immigration, specifically within an American context, to network and connect with other local faith leaders to explore possibilities for further collaboration in these shared principles. And then, of course, to be a peacemaker, however I can. So that was my intent and desire as part of this event. I was quite moved by the prayers and reflections offered by the various faith leaders who spoke. I was, struck by the contrast of the calm and the peace of those words against some of the chaotic environment. Now, while I was there, I did not see any, I don't know, active fires, criminal activity, or anything of the like. These demonstrations have been going on for several days, so my presence is not should not be interpreted as any kind of condoning of law breaking or criminal behavior or anarchy or anything of the like. It was really, really fascinating to see the impact that this gathered group of clergy and faith representatives had once we marched and walked together to the Homeland Security building, to the crowds that were already gathered there that hadn't been a part of the prayer vigil. Perhaps it was a little rowdy in getting there at first. It was a bit of an intimidating scene insofar as right, you could clearly see the various federal authorities and law enforcement officials clad in riot gear, in gas masks, and prepared to defend and protect federal property as needed. As you mentioned as well, there was a curfew that was enacted at 8 p.m. By the Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. She also spoke at the prayer vigil. Wasn't aware that she would be among the speakers in advance, but nonetheless appreciated her own admonitions to remain uh, lawful, peaceful, and appropriate in the demonstration of civil liberties, such as freedom of speech or assembly or protest, to those that were gathered. So once the 8 p.m. curfew came around, we all dispersed. There were very vocal efforts taken by the clergy within this group, the organizers, to the larger crowds that we kind of encountered there to remain peaceful, to remain lawful, and to go home once curfew was enacted. And by and large, that's what we witnessed. The Los Angeles Times reported that compared to other nights in downtown LA, Tuesday night was particularly quiet, calm, and peaceful. Uh, Mind you, there were still perhaps 2 dozen or so individuals who remained later within an hour of curfew. But out of the thousands that I saw gathered there, things largely dispersed and diffused following our presence and kind of active um, efforts to, encourage that kind of peaceful and lawful behavior.
Okay, and so how were you received when you walked over to the federal building? Was there any hostility? Were they shooting rubber bullets at you or anything like that?
No, no. I witnessed no violence while I was there, both on the part of demonstrators or on the part of federal authorities or law enforcement. Thank goodness. It remained. I'm not going to say that it wasn't an intimidating scene or that there wasn't tension. That was certainly in the air. And sometimes, in those kinds of environments or moments, it becomes all the more important for us as individuals, as members of our communities and people of faith, to remain calm, collected, measured, and nonetheless peacefully prepared to express our shared convictions when it comes to the dignified treatment of God's children. Um, so no, there wasn't any violence, but of course I did see, the preparation of federal authorities and law enforcement officials in their riot gear, with anti-riot or crowd control weapons. I'm very grateful that things went as they did. Um, and yeah, of course, want to always be mindful of my own presence in any interfaith space that I'm in, to make sure that it's completely appropriate within the bounds of what I'm hoping to represent.
So what's the general, you're there on the ground in Los Angeles, and what's the general sense of just regular folks? How are they responding to this? How do they feel about this?
Well, while there's of course concern about the risk of possible escalation, I've had various conversations with neighbors or friends in the area where it's interesting, Steve, because in many respects I see much more on social media when it comes to claims of how bad things are here than I have at any point in person, including being in the chaos and thick of it itself in downtown Los Angeles. There has been perhaps a hyperbolic rhetoric about the whole of Los Angeles being on fire. I assure you, the fires were much greater the last time I came on this program to talk about the wildfires. Aside from, there's been unfortunate and regrettable incidents of vandalism, looting, kind of anarchistic opportunism. We've seen pictures or videos of the robo cars, the Waymo vehicles that are driverless, at least five of them set on fire at different points of the events of the last week or so. And but again, any of those examples of chaos have been largely restricted to just a certain section of downtown Los Angeles. It does not characterize the whole of the city. It does not characterize even the majority of the protests or demonstrations that have taken place. I'm not going to say that there haven't been examples of rioting. Unfortunately, there have been. But we have to be very careful and willing to accept that there are multifaceted and nuanced realities at play that don't always reflect certain more partisan news treatments of the situation.
So you would also say that, like you had said earlier, that this was a nonpartisan, non-political event, and that this was a moral. You are marching for a moral crusade. This was about, the scriptures do talk extensively about the treatment of the stranger,
Mm.
of immigrants and stuff like that, and how as Christians and people of faith we need to be kind to our neighbors and also be so in one sense you're following the scriptures when you're actually speaking out against what the mistreatment is how you would look at it, correct?
Well, yeah, I think we live in a very polarized time on this issue. It's unfortunate to see some of these conversations reduced to simple binaries where you are either someone who loves your neighbor, your immigrant neighbor, or someone who um, maybe stands for chaotic open borders, or that you can't be hopeful that law enforcement officials or federal authorities remain safe and protected without I don't know, betraying, the cause of some of these immigrant communities. Again, I would just encourage anyone listening to be willing to grapple with multiple realities, multiple truths, and Christ-like principles here. I think there's a balance to be struck between these kinds of binaries, and I think now is a time where we need to be willing to um, resist some of those very reductive or simplified approaches to these conversations, to be able to speak to each other with respect, with civility, to be able to, once more encourage lawful behavior, but also peaceful behavior, also behavior which does show genuine love and support to both documented and undocumented immigrants alike. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has a number of members within the United States who are undocumented immigrants. And while Latter-day Saints, as per one of our articles of faith, believe in honoring, obeying, and sustaining the law, um, it's also the case per church policy that being an undocumented immigrant, one's immigration status does not have inherent bearing on your worthiness to be baptized, to participate in sacred ordinances, to receive a calling, to serve a church mission, or to receive forms of assistance funded through tithes and fast offerings, to help individuals receive basic needs such as food and clothing and whatnot. So again, there's a balance to be struck here. Local church leaders do not inquire about the immigration status of individual members. Um, again, we encourage remaining lawful, um, and recognize that immigration can be an immensely complex and personal issue. Um, but they are members of our congregation, and right now, whether in the Los Angeles stake or various other stakes within the United States, there are both documented and undocumented, legal or illegal, um, church members or their families or friends or neighbors who experience a lot of fear right now, who are in need of ministering, of comfort, and forms of legal support. So, those are kinds of my thoughts on the issue. I definitely care about fairly and accurately representing the church's position here within the scope of my calling, um, and finding ways to collaborate with other faith communities as we kind of strike this balance of, outreach to our neighbor while also encouraging lawful and peaceful conduct.
Well, I really appreciate that, Jackson. And I think it's really important that, so often people try to push people of faith outside of the public square, whether it's the civil rights movement, whether it's the right to life movement, whether it's is this prayer vigil that's happening. And of course, scripture tells us to be salt and light. And so I think what I'm saddened to see is that everything's become so political that they don't realize that sometimes people are actually doing things out of religious and moral conviction.
Mm,
And whether it's attending a Right to Life rally or it's attending this vigil on Tuesday to speak out on behalf of, people want to speak out on behalf of the unborn. You want to speak out on behalf of those who are undocumented and are being mistreated. I think that that's a Christian value that I think we can all appreciate. I always refer to the image. We're all fellow image bearers. And
yeah.
so I think it's really, and it says my internet's unstable, but hopefully this is coming through okay. I think it's really important that we sometimes maybe ratchet down the partisanship and just realize that, Christians should be engaging, Christians should be in the space, that space. We should be in the middle of this. This is what our calling. And to say that Christians shouldn't be there is no different than the left saying Christians shouldn't be participating in the political world as well. I think we should be out there in the marketplace, period.
hmm Yeah, and just to comment on kind of different political viewpoints here, I think it's also appropriate to add that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, of course, remains politically neutral in the sense that it doesn't endorse particular political parties or candidates. It does not tell its members who to vote for or which parties they can or cannot affiliate with. And so my life personally has been very enriched and blessed by a range of church members who, may identify as conservative or liberal, Republican or Democrat, or various other configurations, but are nonetheless open to this kind of civil dialogue, to, working through complicated social issues with sensitivity, respect, and immense thoughtfulness, and in collaboration with one another. I think that's how it should be. That my conception of Zion, or the one that I encounter as articulated within the teachings of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is that it requires all of us to be willing to come to the table to recognize the things which unify us, and to look for areas of possible collaboration or compromise in areas of disagreement. We're not all going to be the same. We're not all going to approach these issues in the same way. But as far as principles go, we can remain committed to peaceful civil dialogue with one another. We can seek out trustworthy, reliable sources of information, something that is very, very important at a time of not just polarization, but frequent misinformation. And yeah, I would never want to give the impression that good members of the church cannot disagree with me politically in various respects. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into this, but I think if we make more space for dialogue with one another as opposed to immediate condemnation, that can go a long way to facilitating these kinds of exchanges.
Well, that's what we try to do here at MBR. And of course, Jackson, you've been part of this journey with me in some ways for these 4 years. And I always appreciate what you bring to the table. And I want to thank you for coming on today. Do you have any
Yeah.
final words?
Well, just my gratitude, Steve, for kind of the space that you provide for these conversations. And yeah, I just encourage anyone who's interested in possibly, finding ways to be vehicles for good within their own spaces, their own congregations, to prayerfully consider how the Lord might use them to minister to those in need, and to the ways that we can genuinely view each other as fellow children of God and neighbors. Um, yeah, I think. Oops.
Nope,
I think.
just finish
Yeah,
up because I just want to share this. Yep.
yeah. No, yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of work that all of us can do, irrespective of maybe our own other affiliations or viewpoints here. There's a lot of room for us to work together. So that's what I would love to see and definitely encourage.
All right, Jackson. Well, just I'm going to leave a link to Jackson's article that he just released earlier this afternoon. It's 3:45 p.m. Eastern Time on June 12th, and I will be releasing this at our regular 6 p.m. Eastern Time slot. And I want to thank you so much for coming on today and appreciate the work you're doing and looking forward to having you back on soon, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much, Steve. I hope you have a good rest of the day.
So I have links in the description for everything we talked about. For those of you who'd like to financially support the channel, I'll have links in there as well. Thank you to all who support us. Couldn't do it without you. And remember, the most important thing is this: all the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.